Hello viewers, welcome to another edition of Business PNG. We just celebrated our country's 38 years of independence. For a country, this is considered quite young. Being a developing country with an economy that's growing quite rapidly, developing modern and rehabilitating existing infrastructure can be quite a challenging and expensive exercise. The 2013 budget categorized infrastructure spending as a key area, and again, the recently released 2014 budget strategy paper places infrastructure as a priority area. But the question is, what's going to be done different this time? In this episode, we take a look at infrastructure development and rehabilitation so far. Where are we right now, and where are we heading to? Transportation links include roads and bridges, seaports and airports. These are important for economic growth in that its accessibility and upkeep ensures supply-demand chains are linked. The government plans on repairing, rehabilitating and maintaining key highways and supporting key ports and airfield infrastructure. These main linkages and ports include the Highlands Highway, our nation's most important transportation artery, vital for movement of people and goods between Lae and Madang and the populous Highlands region. The Highlands Highway, due to weather conditions and treacherous landscapes, is in need of constant maintenance. Work has also begun on the highway linking East and West New Britain, which will also be vital in linking the two provinces, enabling more trade and business services between East and West New Britain. The government has also committed to funding an extension of the Port Moresby International Terminal with close to 30 million kina allocated. The Jacksons International Airport is the busiest airport in PNG. Recent upgrades have enabled us to have more flights, both international and domestic, which promote business and trade and more frequent flight options for the travelling public. Also, upgrades of the capital's seaport have aided in facilitating domestic and international trade in PNG in a faster, more efficient way. In the area of telecommunications, the PNG government has committed to improving infrastructure for efficiency and competitiveness in the current market. The O'Neill government announced a major project to improve Telecom, PNG's backbone telecommunications company, since taking office last year. At a cost of 500 million kina, the government invested in a national transmission network which aims to connect major population centers on PNG's mainland via a cross-country network of fiber optic cables. Furthermore, construction of Papua New Guinea's national broadband network is progressing, with major milestones set to be reached by mid-2015.
With the support of the IPPC, our shareholder, and the government of Papua New Guinea, Telecom has been afforded the opportunity to undertake an investment to implement this project through the assistance from Huawei at a cost of almost 600 million kina. The majority of the funding will be sourced from the China Exim Bank through a liaison with the Department of Treasury. This project will incorporate the replacement of Telecom's obsolete radio infrastructure, and as a lot of people may or may not be aware that the infrastructure of Telecom over the years has been quite old and needs replacement desperately. It will also replace the public switch telephone network, the PSTN, and increase fixed broadband network penetration to match our existing geographic footprint, as well as provide a fourth generation mobile broadband service to major urban centers in Papua New Guinea. Under the Vision 2050, the ICT goal will have an immediate impact towards a smart and happy society. In the Global Information Technology Report in 2013, it was mentioned that mobile data usage has a positive effect by improving real GDP of any growing and developing nation. The report for the McKinsey Global Institute mentions that broadband infrastructure, the backbone of the entire internet ecosystem, is an irreplaceable prerequisite to any society.
Stay tuned. More on infrastructure development target areas when we come back. Welcome back. You're watching Business PNG. In the 2013 national budget, the government committed well over 2 billion kina either on the rehabilitation of existing or the development of modern infrastructure. Understanding that infrastructure rehabilitation and development solutions need consistent long-term commitment, the O'Neill Dion government has committed a further 12.1 billion kina over a 5-year period commencing in 2013. Having looked at transport and telecommunication infrastructure, we now take a look at the energy and health sectors. The energy sector, another key priority for infrastructure, is key to economic growth. PNG has one of the lowest rates of energy access in the world. Statistics show that energy access for Papua New Guineans is stuck at 10%.
So let me go to one of the sectors where we have most experience. This is really the power sector. And power, for example, in PNG, I was reading up that its access to power is limited to 10% of the population. And that's really a very stark number because power is not just in terms of light shining, it also has a big influence in terms of healthcare, education, being able to pump water. So in fact, even though electricity and access to electricity was not one of the specific Millennium Development Goals, I think it was something that we really missed because it's one of those infrastructure services that has huge development impact, and without it, it can really cripple both industry, residential, as well as basic quality of life.
Energy is essential in economic growth. In fact, all other key areas of infrastructure development hinge on the energy sector. Schools, hospitals, police stations, etc. all depend on energy to run efficiently for the benefit of the people. State-owned enterprise PNG Power, in addressing this challenge, has come up with a number of solutions. Firstly, they set out to privatize and incentivize the generation space through competitive bidding processes for independent power producers.
The PNG government has adopted an electricity industry policy that encourages competition and private sector investment in power generation. So in line with this policy, PNG Power has embarked on the process of contracting independent power producers to provide private generating facilities to augment its existing generation infrastructure.
At the recent PNG Business Advantage Summit, Minister for Public Enterprise and State Investment Ben Micah made known continuous plans for a Purari hydropower project to see completion by 2015.
This is the project that I believe will transform Papua New Guinea, and that is the Purari hydropower project. So the government has now come up with definite steps now to get the Purari project going. This is a project that we want to target as the provider of cheap, reliable, and long-term sustainable power.
The people of Oro Province will now look forward to the Divuna River hydropower project after much debate and negotiations between landowners, ADB, and PNG Power. Apart from this, there has also been talks on the construction of major power plants on the back of mineral projects such as the Wafi Golpu project. This step enables efficient local supply of energy for the influx of workers, residents and others visiting these areas. Furthermore, PNG Power aims to rehabilitate major existing facilities such as the Sirinumu and Yonki dams as well as the Ramu transmission system.
Once commissioned, the Yonki 12 dam will drastically improve reliability within the Ramu system. Mindful of our transmission lines, which we've entered into an agreement with JICA to provide a redundancy in terms of our extra transmission line into Leh to support our existing transmission line.
Health services and infrastructure is another key area that is in need of development and rehabilitation. New and old hospitals, clinics and aid posts are being planned, built and renovated to provide an acceptable level of health services to cater for the growing needs of the population. The Department of National Planning and the Health Department have recently pledged a grant of 50 million kina for the renovation of the much talked about Angao Hospital in Leh. The allocated funds will be used to build a cancer ward and a children's ward, among other much needed facilities for staff and patients. Strategically located at one end of the Highlands Highway, the Angao Memorial Hospital in Leh caters for the needs for more Papua New Guineans than just the Leh residents. On a larger scale, health workers nationwide have long been frustrated and demoralized by the lack of attention to their salaries, living conditions, and other challenges they face in providing this vital service. In light of these concerning issues, funds allocated for the health sector have taken into consideration staff accommodation and general staff needs in providing better services for the people. Up next, what developments should we be looking forward to? Stay with us. Welcome back. For most Papua New Guineans, infrastructure development and rehabilitation is a major need, especially in the country's rural areas. The government, on the other hand, in recognition of this need and the challenges involved, has taken to this task diligently. In retrospect, what are we as a nation looking forward to? Let's find out. Looking forward, what forms of infrastructure and infrastructure rehabilitation are the people of Papua New Guinea expecting in the year 2014? 4 out of the 6 key priorities in the 2014 budget strategy paper are infrastructure-related and oriented. Infrastructure development and rehabilitation hence constitutes a large portion of the 2014 national budget. The Department of Treasury recently released its 2014 budget strategy paper. In this paper, the government has stated that its budget priorities for the coming year are in the areas of law and order, health, education, and infrastructure. As of July this year, the government has stated that 50% of its projects have been implemented. NRI statistics show that 49.3% of the infrastructure spending has been done this year.
I just want to highlight that as of the 6th of September, over 3 billion or 77% of the development budget has been released in warrants. This is only the government of PNG component. But in terms of actual expenditure, only 49% of this 3 billion warrants released to date has been spent.
This shows that our work as a nation in this area of infrastructure development has just begun. Indeed, there are challenges in both the planning and the implementation aspects of development.
At the national level, the government said that this is the year of the implementation and allocated huge amounts of money to national impact projects. It was surprising to see the Secretary for, and also pleasing to see that the Secretary for Planning said and acknowledges the problems of implementation. 40% in this is September, and 40% of the funds allocated have been spent. Clearly, there are problems with implementation at the national level, transfer of funds, project scoping, and so on. And I think going into the future, we have to think about transferring monies and funds to local level, provincial level, district level, but more importantly to the service providers at the school level, at the facility centers, health service, health centers, sub-health centers, and so on, so that they have the funds there to spend on the things that they can make the decisions about fixing health workers' houses, purchase the drugs, provide the transport to come to town and get the things that are needed and so forth, so that these services are available. Because at the national level, if we lump it under a national agency to spend it, then we can see the bottlenecks that these funds will not be spent, and at the end of the year, then they all go back to the public account system, and we don't see that. So I think there's some important lessons in terms of how we can improve services at the local level by transferring funds, but having local accountability mechanisms in place, and also the oversight mechanisms that the national level can provide.
There's also a significant infrastructure development in upgrading hospitals and schools, and I think, or generally, it's good news for everyone that these things are occurring. The biggest problem that some studies have highlighted, for example, in the United Nations post-2015 analysis, it was identified that the government of Papua New Guinea spent a considerable amount of time building new infrastructure in all sectors: health, education, law enforcement, and the roads and infrastructure. But they have not spent an equal amount of time and energy in the recurrent part. So you may have your new schools, but do you have the right sort of curriculum, the teachers, and the capacity to fully utilize the facilities? And it's the same for the hospitals. You have built very grand hospitals and clinics. Do you have the people power to utilize the infrastructure that's being developed?
Stay tuned. More to come when we come back. Welcome back. Economic growth for Papua New Guinea hinges on infrastructure rehabilitation and development. Infrastructure development enables businesses to grow, supply and demand chains to run efficiently, and basic health and education services to be consistently delivered, bringing to reality growth and development nationwide. PNG's population is estimated to be 6.5 million and is predicted to reach 9 million by 2020. Currently, 87% of PNG's people live in rural areas, in widely scattered communities that are often not accessible by road. Studies done over the last 5 years by organizations such as the United Nations, National Research Institute, and the World Health Organization have shown that people living in rural areas of Papua New Guinea are in great need of infrastructure development. Infrastructure is important to connect communities to basic services such as health and education, to improve social cohesion, and to facilitate access to markets for participation in economic activities. The level of infrastructure within a province or district can affect both whether a community's needs are met and the efficiency and effectiveness in which they are met. Improving and initiating infrastructure empowers these districts to participate in the economic growth of the country. A practical example of a lack of infrastructure being disabling to Papua New Guineans in rural areas is shown in a case study of the Yelia local level government area in the Obura Wonanara district in the Eastern Highlands province. There is limited road access and part of the district is accessible only by air. Villages are spread out with groups of up to 3 households separated by a 20 to 30 minute walk. The closest markets are in Menyamia, which is a 2-day walk away from some parts of Yelia. In Yelia, the majority of households live within an hour's walk of a health facility. The schools that are available in the district are community schools that go up to grade 6. 1 out of the 4 clusters in Yelia has no school, and here, some parents send their children away so they could attend school. Building and maintaining roads for transportation of coffee and other commodities would help in giving people easier access in and out of the Yelia area for business and other services. Furthermore, providing health and education facilities for basic services will improve living standards and consequently empower and enable them to have equal opportunities to participate in and benefit from the development of our country. Director for NRI, Dr. Thomas Webster, spoke recently on service delivery in various provinces around the country, based on research data, during a budget forum.
And the general impression we get from media and other reports and people's personal perceptions is that things have deteriorated. What this study, this research findings reveal, and I'm pretty positive about it, is that in education, for instance, things have not improved as significantly as we would have wanted to, but things have improved quite a lot in education. Enrollments have increased, teachers are there. The important thing, people often commented that the school fee subsidies did not have an impact. 80% of the schools were quite positive that they had received the school fees and they're utilizing it in infrastructure and maintenance and so forth. And so the story that's coming out in the education sector is pretty positive in terms of achievements in that sector. In health, there's something, it's not deteriorated where services are no longer being available. Services are still there. About 40% of the population out there are still receiving some level of services. But it varies across the provinces. And for instance, you saw West New Britain, East New Britain, very high levels of service availability. In Gulf and other areas, we can also see that there's very low levels of service availability.
PNG Business Council Executive Director Doveri Henao also expressed his views during an interview.
But for the larger population on health and education, I think the biggest challenge for them is, although facilities have been upgraded, do we have the people that will be taking care of them, the doctors and the teachers, the medicines, the school books and other materials vital for the use of those services. So there are undoubtedly efforts made by government that they themselves recognize the public service is restricted and constrained in that delivery space. Minister Abel recently announced the Church Partnership Program. That's an indication on growing partnerships that the government is acknowledging deficiencies in its service delivery. And for the private sector, we also look at that perspective as a front that we'd like to engage as well. Thank you for building the infrastructure. We can partner and roll out some of our opportunities, the capabilities that are within the private sector in delivering those some of those gaps that exist in the service delivery mechanism. So it's an evolving relationship that's coming on board. But that first initial investment on building up the infrastructure is certainly welcomed, and it's now up to us to collaboratively work together to maximize the infrastructure that's there.
An empowered community is a community that is given the opportunity to participate in and benefit from the development of this nation. The government's allocated funds for infrastructure development and rehabilitation in priority sectors gives Papua New Guineans great hope for the future. And that winds up this edition of Business PNG. To access our programs online, log on to www.mtv.com.pg. Also, remember to send us your feedback via Facebook, email or Twitter. Until next week, I'm Dennis Sorere. Have a pleasant evening.